Well, I'm very honored and thrilled today to be joined by the new and recently elected mayor of Neenah, Wisconsin. He also happens to be a former student of mine, and his name is Brian Borchardt. Mayor Borchardt, thank you for being here.
Absolutely, Tony. I'm excited. It's kind of considering when we first met to where we are now. It's kind of surreal.
Well, let me just tell, yeah, it really is. Let me just tell people a little bit about you. You've been married to Lori for 28 years now,
Actually, it's going to be 30 come October.
30 years in October. Lori was also a student of mine. She was the smarter one, of course, but
Absolutely. Better looking too.
yes. Oh, yes. You guys have three adult children,
Yep.
which is amazing. You've got your bachelor's, of course, in communication, master's in educational leadership. You spent 18 years in the Neenah School District.
Yeah, actually it was 19, I was in my 19th year before moving on to this position.
Yeah, and the majority of those years were as a teacher, where you won at least one, maybe two awards for teaching.
Yeah, there were a few in there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then you got elected to the Neenah Common Council. Was it in 2020?
That's correct. Yeah, there was an open spot. Unfortunately, Chris Coons had passed away, and I took a shot at it in the sense that when I was teaching my students originally was government and trying to get socially active and governmentally active, and I kind of said, well, I kind of been telling everyone else to do this, so here's my shot. And it really is a weird, long winding road to get to where I was, but that was obviously the start of it.
Wow. Now, 2026 was not the first time you ran for mayor. You had run, was it 4 years previous?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Dean Cofford was our current mayor at the time, and mayor, well, at the time, Alderman Lang, Jane Lang was on council. I had just been on council for 2 years, and I kind of thought, well, what the heck? I'll throw my name in. And looking back on that, I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Because the amount of information and things that come flying at you, and so Jane and I ran against each other. We both, at least took a position because we were friends and we knew each other from council. And I was just like, here's me. This is me, and you guys decide about Jane. And it wasn't a nasty. And I knew either way, one of us was going to have to work with each other. So I just didn't see any need to, or that's just not who I am. The
Right.
people of Neenah have known me for how long? Almost 30 years at that point. I wasn't going to be throwing mud and picking out negative things because I hate that at the national level. And, I had to think about this. There's probably no reason. I don't think I would have ran if I had to put an R or a D by my name.
Right.
So I love the idea that this was nonpartisan. I could run a race that was true to who I was, who people knew who I was. And at the end of the day, I knew if Jane won, and which she did, I was going to work with her and support her. That's just how it's supposed to work, right?
Exactly right. So you obviously didn't win the first time you ran for mayor. You won the second time. So the second time that you ran and won, was it a case of feeling more informed and more confident in as an elected official? What changed the second time?
It really, I think politics, as it will, is sometimes just timing. I got my name out there, and I had 2,000 some votes, meaning, 2 years in council kind of said, hey, I had a good message and a decent message. I continued to work hard as city council president with Jane for 3 years. And the truth is that my aspirations were, okay, well, Jane's going to run again, and I told her I'd support her in every way I could. It would then be 4 years. It would one, so essentially would be I'd have 4 more years left on if I stuck it out as alderman for another year. I really was enjoying my role as council president, and gained a lot of knowledge with her help. Really just listening to her and finding out what some of the things she was doing. And so to your point, yeah, I did. I gained a lot of knowledge in those 4 years that really, set me up to understand. And really what it came down to, Tony, was relationships. I respected those people that worked at City Hall. I knew how hard they worked. It was always about courtesy and making sure I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And there were times we disagreed, but it was respectful, and it was, always inquisitively, not, pointing the fingers and things. And I think that set the tone for when Jane decided not to run. I think I made a logical choice for people to support.
And Jane was a fairly popular mayor, I
She's
believe.
Miss Neenah, right? And
Yeah,
she's
she
been around
is. And
forever, family lineage. You
yeah,
bet.
and she endorsed you. Is that correct?
Yeah, she did. And and that was part of the, I don't want to say the deal, but when she decided she didn't want to, and she had ran, obviously 4 years, and family was coming back to town and all of these things. And she definitely left her mark. A lot of the things that I'm championing now are because Jane started them. And so I think she was ready to be done. And but she has deep roots in the community, and she's still super active. I've got her working on the Friends of Neenah initiative, our volunteer core plan that she helped start, and I wanted to make sure she continued. And we obviously have conversations from time to time. She's involved in Rotary, and I see her there, so she's not going anywhere. And I told her that's not an option for her.
And Dean Coffert had been mayor before Jane, and he'd been mayor for at least maybe 3 terms.
2 terms. He was eight years. He was.
2 terms. He was very popular also. Did you get his endorsement also?
I did. Yeah. And this year was a little bit different, and I'll kind of give you the contrast between the two campaigns. Jane, again, very popular in the community. We ran in some of the same circles, so I think it was really weird for people to be like, the city can't lose. That's the conversation I heard a lot. And so I didn't seek a lot of those endorsements and approach it that way, because to be honest, Tony, I didn't want to feel people like uncomfortable or put them in a weird situation. And so I left that to chance. This time I was a little bit more emboldened and understood that I had a little bit more behind me, and I went after, the people that I know that knew me and that were really movers and shakers in the community. And because I needed those, and not only those endorsements, but those people's, those support, because as I'm finding, it's not just City Hall that matters. It's those that are in our community that help drive our agenda and our goals for the city.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one thing I've been really happy to see, Brian, and especially given your background in communication, is that you've been making communication an emphasis in City Hall. What is your view on how a mayor should communicate with city residents, and how have you been trying to implement that view?
It's interesting, Tony. We've had conversations in the past. How have you used your communication degree, and how have you done this? And that's evolved in so many ways in different capacities that I've been around. But the core message at it is people just want to be informed. And in today's media, I mean, it's I'm not even sure what they know what they want to do with the media they consume, and their consumption sometimes is seconds, and then they're on to something else. But the minute you don't is when they fill in the blanks, and it's usually something negative or something they heard on the internet. So truthfully, I'm trying to control the message that Neenah is a great place to live. And I understand that people are desensitized to email and desensitized to letters in the mail. Some are, right? But we're talking a generation from, I'm going to even just include 16 to all the way to 100, right? I've got to be able to appeal to all of those, because those 16-year-olds are going to be citizens one day. And so what I really started to do in my campaign was just deal with messaging and telling people the facts. Tony, I mean, you talk about it in your rants all the time about how much misinformation's out there. And then next thing you know, people take off in a different direction. We have a lot of really good things going on in Neenah right now. And I think we need to be on the offensive a little bit and celebrate some of those successes. And people want to see their mayor. That's the other thing, Tony. Me, I'm not shy. I'm kind of an extrovert, but sometimes I'm surprised at how many people really want to see the mayor and understand and hear from them. And I'm excited to do that. I mean, I've been at award ceremonies. I did an opening speech welcoming the Gardeners Association of Wisconsin at, all of these things that I love doing, because it's interaction with people and it's communicating, but it gets the message out that Neenah is a great place to be. And we're proud that people are here and working in this community.
Excellent. And when you were in college, the mayor of Neenah was a guy named George Shirk. I don't know if you remember him.
I do. Of course I know
Wonderful
George.
man.
Yes.
And Mayor Shirk was famous for answering the phone,
Yep.
right? I mean, a citizen would call Neenah City Hall, and you would actually get the mayor on the phone. Are you planning to be that style of mayor?
Absolutely. And that's, we just hired a communication specialist, and I know we'll talk about it in a second, but we're starting just at least phase one of this, and it's going to be the Mayor Minute. It really is just update on some of the things that are happening. We're asking residents to figure out what they want to know, but it really want to centralize that message. But I'm here at City Hall. I would love to be off. I have office hours at a retirement apartments. At one time, I'm going to start to put office hours out into the community as we start to look at my first year, maybe a wrap up of like a State of the Union. Tony, I've got to be able to sleep at night. And so the decisions I make are going to be fact based. They may not always be the answers some of our citizens want to know, but they're going to get an answer from me. And so to your
Oh
point about
yeah.
that, I just,
Yeah, I think a state of the city address would be really great.
yeah. And here's the deal. It's really not about me, Tony. I know I'm that face and I have to make those tough decisions, but very different from when I was teaching. Sometimes, and a lot of times I had to be that expert in the room. And now I've got, a staff of, 250 people that I could lean on to answer these questions and really get to the heart of it. Like if you're talking about some of the issues we had with our flooding, I was able to go talk to my engineers who are phenomenal in public works and really put things in perspective. This recently, public park and rec, just they're the ones that made our community fest look amazing, right? I'm the one that gets to lead the parade and shake hands and do those things, but it's cool having that many cool, like just dedicated people on a team. So highlighting those people, highlighting the positives, really, and I'm going to use this analogy, Tony, is that we've been doing roads in Neenah for 150 years. That's how old we are, right? Tonight or this summer, someone's road is being done for the very first time. And we have to understand that. And if we don't take a step back and just really understand that there are customers, we've got to find ways to say yes and find ways to make sure that on the back end, we're not, having 17 people in our council chambers angry because we didn't communicate. So back to your point is that is transparency. This is who I am. Transparency with my council and with our customers in our city of Neenah is going to be my priority.
I think what you're saying, Brian, is so important. When I was on the city council in Oshkosh for 4 years, I found that most residents could deal with things like having a street built, even though no one likes to pay for it. They would be okay with it if you would communicate early, clearly, right? As you said, the facts, honestly, they still might not like it, but at least they understand the policy, where it's coming from, and that you're also committed to it. So I'm glad that you're doing that. Now, you mentioned your mayor minute, and someone who's helping you with that is Andy Radig, who you hired as is his title communication director?
We're working on his title. It's communicate. It's the communications community outreach specialist. So it doesn't roll off the tongue, but he's really I can't tell you how excited I am for him. There's certain things you're not supposed to do when you kind of jump into the mayoralship, and you're probably not supposed to renovate your office. I did that. Got a little heat for that. You're probably not supposed to sue the DNR. I did that. Probably, and you're probably not supposed to get rid of your administrative assistant, executive assistant. And I did that because I just saw the need for someone to come in here and really tell the story of Neenah and help all of us do that and celebrate the people that work here. And Andy, I can't tell you, Tony, we got lucky. Let's put it that way. His pedigree and what he's done for Oshkosh. He posted that he was, moving up north Neenah, and the outpouring of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You're so lucky. The phone calls I've received. We've been having a blast. I mean, we are on the same page, and I think he enjoys the welcome that he received here from all the departments and really some latitude to be creative and have fun. And I've pretty much taken off the handcuffs from Andy and said, let's get going.
Wow, that's so great to hear. And I've known Andy for many years. Obviously, I've known you for many years, and both of you have very similar temperaments. Very good-natured, fair-minded. Andy is much more withdrawn than you, but loves people, right? The two of you are just so supportive, and I expect it's going to be a really good team for quite a while. So that's great. Again, we're sad to lose them in Oshkosh, but thankfully Neenah is only 10 miles north of Oshkosh.
Right up straight A, right? We'll take it. So yeah, no,
Exactly.
it's been a great transition. And, I think I'm just, people have been receptive not only to him, but also putting together a communication system here in Neenah to make sure that we are reaching all of our customers in Neenah. That's super important. So Andy's going to be an integral role of that.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so critical. Now, I imagine Neenah is probably in budget season now, right? Are you like planning your budget right now?
We are right now that we're working on our CIP. We have a 5-year CIP, or capital improvement plan. It's Tony, and I mean, you have somebody at the Wisconsin State Legislature and how difficult it is when it comes to budget, and perhaps how and I'll say it. I think we're often the forgotten ones at the municipality, and we're the ones on the boots on the ground doing and making things happen. And I think sometimes the levy limits and the restraints that we have for operational purposes have really hampered us in competing with the private sector. We have great people here because they love being here. And I really want that. I don't want people to jump ship because, they can get $4 more or $2 more an hour somewhere else. But our hands are tied. They let us borrow all we want. Go figure, right? Let's feed the banks and all the interest rates and all that stuff. But when it comes to maybe putting more officers on the field, or maybe doing more construction projects or whatever within the city, we're quite limited with our operational budget.
Yeah, what specific challenges is the city of Neenah facing as we get into this budget season? See, Oshkosh, for example, we just learned that we're facing something like a $3 million deficit going into this budget year. Are you guys facing any kind of deficit, for example?
We are. I'm working closely with our Vicki Rasmussen is our director of finance, and she's been instrumental in putting a debt management policy in place for our borrowing. I call it the old water heater goes out once in a while, and so you have to go over budget. But we were borrowing this year. We're borrowing $19 million, and at a rate of paying back $10 million. We've got to level that out because we wouldn't run our homes like that. And Vicki's been instrumental in putting in, a management policy that where department heads can really look at each of their asks and is it a need? Is it a want? Or did you just get that new thing last year? You may have to wait for someone else. And that's, we're fortunate every year, Tony, that we get our piggy banks refilled, whether we do a good job or not. So
Right.
I want to be a good stewards of that money. So I think empowering the directors to really look and see where we can find it. With that said, I think there has to be something to be done. And I've talked with Mayor Hammond from Menasha, and I've talked to Mayor Jacob in Appleton, and I'm making my rounds around the municipalities and the towns and the villages, a collective voice that says to Madison, hey, wait a second, what about us? And you're making all this stuff. We had obviously a conversation about the surplus and the vote to where to put that. Nowhere there did it say we're going to give some relief based on the levies and things that we could do at the city level. And again, I support education and all the things they were trying to do. It just looked awfully political to me. And there's people on here, and my biggest worry is maintaining quality, cultural, and making sure we're competitive with our rates. And I don't want to be a bench or a bullpen for another city that can come in and swoop our good people away because they have the ability to pay more. Um,
Right.
so that's a tall task, especially in 4 years. But we're gonna get working on it. We have some amazing. Our HR director is doing our market study. Heather Barber has been phenomenal as far as organizing things systematically, where we can find resources and where we can actually put the onus back on the people that are working here to find those solutions.
As you know, Brian, Northeast Wisconsin citizens are notoriously frugal. They are convinced that there's a lot of waste and fraud in government at all levels. Can you assure the Neenah citizens that there really is not waste in Neenah city government?
There's so many eyes. Obviously, council. The ironic thing is, I probably have less power now to spend money than I ever have because I'm not on council. So when people misunderstand that the mayor can make magic wand, the old checks and balances pretty much puts it on kibosh, right? And we everything and through Mayor Lang, through Mayor Cofford, and obviously through Mayor Shirk and Harwood. There's so much transparency. It's local government. It's not like we have these bajillion-dollar contracts and our resolutions aren't 17 or 18 pages deep or probably 200 pages deep. These are one issues. These are, to be honest, kind of boring sometimes. You need a
Yeah.
lawnmower. So no, I can assure you no backroom deals. I'm still driving my Honda CRV. And you know what? I think, unfortunately, Tony, we get a bad rap down here at the local level because of the national politics and the state politics. They just assume that's who we are. We don't have time for that. We're running a business here, and the people that work here at City Hall are busting their ass every day to provide their customers, which are Neenah citizens, the best product possible. Now, are there times when we probably oh, maybe we could have done a little better job here? Could we go out and get grants here? And we're working on that. Can we be more efficient? I know the bad word here is AI, but how can I use that in a way to free up some time so they can be more creative and find different solutions? And if we've got to look at those things too. And I think for what I'm learning is people are excited about trying new things.
Yeah.
I always say just because we've always done it doesn't mean we always have to do it. And I know that's a great sentence, but I think people over the course of the next 4 years are going to realize that I mean that. I want to find new ways to improve their job and also, life here in Neenah.
You mentioned that government in Madison tends to overlook or ignore municipal government. What would you like to see the government in Madison do more of as regards how they interact with municipalities?
Yeah, Tony, I think I think we're restrained by our net new build, and our levies are limited based on those types of things. So, meaning if we build a whole bunch of houses and buildings and things, our levy is allowed to go up because of our construction.
Mhm.
However, those things, new construction, it doesn't take into account of inflation, and so let me just, I was in a garbage truck during my campaign, and I realized they're 2.6 miles to the gallon. Okay. So we eat that, especially with our gas prices the way they are now. There's no way we could have budgeted knowing that. I think just allowing us to have a better formula to realize that, again, I'm not asking us to tax the heck out of our citizens. I'm not saying that at all. But the flexibility when we need to be able to get someone in here that is going to, one, save us money because they're efficient or they've got new ways to do this. I just need some tools. And we know we have tools like TIF, or we have different where we, combine or collaborate. We've, combined our Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue together. We're really scraping to find innovative ways to stretch our dollar. It just doesn't seem sometimes the county or the state really cares about that and just asks, nope, you just can't do it because they're protecting the citizens. Meanwhile, they hold $3.3 billion hanging out there of tax dollars. Sorry, just, that's the truth. And it's been used for a political gain,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it's just like, I don't have time for that, Tony. I don't. And we have people here who have high, property taxes and things that, on fixed incomes, and we want to give them the best services possible. And we want to be very, very good fiduciary responsibly with their money.
All right, great. Let's talk about a couple of relatively contentious issues in Neenah. I saw that recently your common council passed an e-bike ordinance.
Yep. Yeah.
What
So
were the e-bikes just like dangerous on the sidewalks or something?
now, Tony, again, you sound like you're being, but here's the deal. The reality of it is there's obviously different variations of e-bikes. We're not looking at the, person that's going to the store and back. The issue that we ran into were these souped up motorcycle in the disguise of an e-bike, or the driving on the sidewalk downtown where we have pedestrians coming in and out of shops. It really was a design that the communities of Fox Crossing, Menasha, and Neenah got together and said, hey, what's some logical teeth to this ordinance that police, if need be, can stop?
Mhm.
And it so might be to your point, for a year, these three communities were working on it. Could we have included more people in and maybe had an open dialogue a little bit? But at sometimes, Tony, I trust my police chief Olson, that the work and the information he's doing on a day-to-day basis can make some of these decisions. But once they clarified it, we got some public input. Menasha looked at it, and Fox Crossing, we passed. I think Menasha is still in the works of it, but we put together a really comprehensive way that, one, it's all about safety. It's two, it's protecting not only the riders but those that are on the sidewalks as well. And you'll get a kick out of this. I found a very large squirt gun, and did a little cartoon character of Chief Olson and put it as an e-bike radar detector. And he's got it on his shelf now. But, we're not going to have Chief Olson sitting in a lawn chair downtown on the sidewalk with a radar. That's the reality of it, is we don't have time or energy to do that, but we do have teeth and we can reinforce that. With that said, there will be a launch of a promotion of like where officers will stop people and say, hey, you need a helmet. Oh, by the way, here's a helmet. That's one thing about our PD has been phenomenal. They are amazing liaisons to our public. I know they get a bad rap all the time, again, because that's just the authoritative thing. And maybe there's some poor experiences in the past with other police officers, but Chief Olson is always about dignity and respect. And that's how he approaches all these initiatives. It's not to stick it to anyone. It's not to, bring tons of money in because of fines. It's how can we make Neenah safer, and how can we treat all of our citizens with dignity and respect? And this ordinance is simply that. So I'm comfortable and confident that is, and we'll look at it in a year. Did it work? Did it not? We assess. We're not going to just do it.
What essentially, Brian, does the ordinance say that someone on an e-bike has to wear a helmet and has to be in the street?
16 or under, helmet. You can be on your the sidewalks as a bike pedaling.
Okay.
There's a segment downtown where there is a lot of foot traffic coming in and out. You can use your e-bike going downtown. I mean, I loop the lake here. If you have ever done that, Tony, it's a pretty amazing loop. And I highly recommend coming up. But I drive in the street and I'm pedaling. I don't have an e-bike, but it's really restricting the souped up e-bikes that are bought off of whatever, and they're going 30 miles an hour.
Right.
So there was a lot of concern that people were upset that they were thinking that, oh my gosh, I have, I take my kids to school, or I have a trailer in the back and I take my kids, so there was just some nuances there. Safe to say, since the ordinance went into effect, we haven't heard much. So either people are doing it, or it's just, again, sometimes we have to prepare for the future. We can't legislate everything. I don't want that. And I trust people to be individuals, but in the time where there are certain times when we have to lay the law down, one, we want to make sure everyone is understanding that is the law. And two, if there are some people that are breaking it, we have the legality to go and charge them.
All right. The much more contentious issue is the flock cameras.
12 flock cameras watch over the streets of Neenah. Local police say it's a tool worth keeping. I'm your Fox Cities neighborhood reporter, Kyle Langelier, with the debate.
In recent months, Appleton, Oshkosh, and Grand Chute all cutting ties with flock cameras.
I'm speaking up for the people that don't want to be surveilled everywhere that they go.
The cameras are used across the country, including many northeast Wisconsin neighborhoods, reading license plates of cars as they drive by.
What would you like to see happen?
I want the cameras removed and not replaced.
Todd Linwood and Jordan Lake are two of over a dozen neighbors who packed a recent committee meeting asking the city to remove the cameras.
This was actually my first time ever going to a city council anything of any sort.
Neighboring cities have cut ties, but Neenah Police Chief Aaron Olson defended the use of the tool, saying the cameras have strong privacy safeguards and have led to several arrests at an affordable cost. That argument for some isn't enough.
I've had good experiences with Neenah PD. I generally trust them, but nobody's perfect, and I think having that available to be misused is scary.
Neenah is under contract with Flock until 2028, but leaders are reviewing options over the next several weeks.
Although I'm against it, if it's an eventuality, there needs to be a framework that is very specific about what they're doing with this, how they're keeping it safe.
Neighbors will have 2 more chances to share their thoughts with Neenah city leaders, the next being at a safety committee meeting on June 23rd. In Neenah, Kyle Langelier, NBC 26.
So as you know, a growing number of cities are, ending their contracts with Flock over concerns about improper surveillance and what have you. So in Oshkosh, for example, I believe the city council had approved a renewal of the contract, but then they found out that the Flock spokesperson had not been completely on the level as regards how the data is used. So Oshkosh, as of now, is apparently not using Flock cameras or anything like it. What's the status of this right now in Neenah?
I'm sorry, we're losing touch here, Tony. Wait, I'm frozen. No, I'm kidding. I don't mind talking about it at all. We're under contract with Flock for another 2 years.
Okay.
All right. So, and again, in our transparency, there were people that came up from Oshkosh, and there were citizens, plenty of citizens here in Neenah that came to one of our public safety and wanted to talk about why Neenah still has Flock because Oshkosh canceled it. And our contract is very different than Oshkosh's and very different than Menasha's and very different than Appleton's. So there was open conversation at our public safety meeting, and we listened to people, and Chief explained the benefits that we had. And there was a good showing, and people, in a forum, a lot of emotion was going on for various different reasons. And a lot of people pointed to Flock for a lot of their frustration and anger, maybe what they heard in Oshkosh. So we wanted to make sure that we continue to have that dialogue. There was another conversation at the next public safety where even more people showed up. We had Flock representatives there. And I'll be honest with you, Tony, I was not super excited about some of the answers that we've gotten at that meeting. I was hoping they would send more people that had a little bit more information. So I was disappointed. At this point, we're still under contract with Flock. Chief Olson has had long conversations. He wants to start an advisory committee with citizens to discuss some of these issues. I think ultimately the big issue is the end-to-end encryption. If people need to know that their information, they feel safe about it. Chief has implemented a lot of things to counteract some of the big arguments people were saying is that, you don't check this, you don't follow this. There's certain protocol you need to do to access that information. I know Milwaukee and Madison and Green Bay utilize that because of the larger cities, and they're keeping their Flock cameras. I think that technology is here, but how can we balance that technology, Tony, with the assurances that we're not into an Orwellian state?
Well, that's what I was going to say, Brian. What is independently of the contract that you've got and so on? I know you've got kind of a libertarian streak. What is your general feeling about surveillance cameras in general? I mean, doesn't that seem to be I don't know. I don't know if I would call it a violation of the Bill of Rights, but I've heard that argument made that it's kind of like a violation of privacy. People feel like they're being treated like criminals even when they're not, and so on. What's your general view on surveillance cameras in general?
That's a tough call, and I'll tell you, being in this seat, and when you hear, and I'll be honest, there was a lot more people that were opposed to Flock that came to the meetings. But I had a lot of people that came to me and says, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel safe, or it helped me do this. I've got to balance that, Tony. And it's weird. It's like Kumbaya would be wonderful in a perfect state where we just trusted people to be good people. And then we would deal with it once the law was broken. I have a lot. I'll tell you what, Tony, it is a lot of philosophical understanding about where America is and what we are now versus when that those freedoms existed. People get angry when you talk about you have your cell phone, you give consent. No one ever reads that big paragraph. You don't know what they're looking at. So sometimes it's really hard for me to be like, you're okay with that by consent, but you're not okay and I understand the argument, Tony. People want their consent, especially with their government, where historically it has proven to sometimes not uphold the best interests of people. As mayor, I can assure you that the things, as we continue to work through this contract and deciding what we do next, it is the people are going to be first. But we also have to understand that there are people out there on the other side that do value that protection. Would I like to put 7 more officers a shift out there? I would, and would we need it? And would that prevent things? I think that would be wonderful. That's not, available. What's lost a lot of times, Tony, is, and again, hitting to your point, and that's where, that's why they have me in this role, or, I have the people, is I got to make a decision. Where's that balance? It's not all or nothing. Because there's a slippery slope the minute you start saying you can't do this, and that's freedom of speech and those types of things. you run into something where we may have something like in Portland where there were no police officers. I'm not saying that if we do this that we're going down that road, but it's a very different scenario where I'm sitting here in this office and I've got people in one ear saying one thing and I've got others doing here. I got to find that common ground, and I know I'm not going to make someone happy.
Well, I do hope that when your police chief puts the advisory committee together, that it does have some opponents of the flock camera on it. I mean, there's a suspicion in some cities that when these committees get created, they're heavily weighted toward one side.
Right.
So I hope it does get balanced so that people do feel heard.
Well, my question too is to these agencies, and they're hearing what people are saying. I'm just telling you right now, I can't imagine that Flock or Axon or all these other companies aren't hearing what the message is. And if they can do this end-to-end encryption, there's a gentleman who lives in Appleton, but he's come to several meetings and I've had conversation. Tanner Mann, you may have ran into him. Tanner's
Smart
been
guy.
fun. Yeah, he's phenomenal, and I've enjoyed having a conversation with him because it's very logical, and I think he understands my role, and I understand him. So I'm real excited to continue that conversation because I'm learning things from him too, and that's how I have to approach this, Tony. I don't have the magic bullet, so to speak, to say this is going to appease both sides. Those are the tough decisions that when I started running for mayor, I knew I was going to have to make. Right. The other part about it, Tony, I don't have any aspirations of going on to the state legislature or being governor. I want to be here in Neenah and do what's right for Neenah. So if I have to make something that maybe isn't politically expedite in my career, I'm okay. Because after 4 years, if I haven't done what's supposed to be done for Neenah in the best interest of Neenah, then it's probably time for me to go.
So no one on your city council is bringing forward, say, a resolution to end the contract early?
There was conversation about that, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know what that is at this point. We had discussions. There was some controversy about, we went into closed session last time because we wanted to discuss the contract and the things surrounding it. People, well, you should do this in public. Well, it's my purview, it's my call. I needed to have a straight, honest conversation about strategy and things that council needed to know and what our chief needed to know and our attorney needed to know. And I got flack for that. No flock for that, but I got flack for that from some of the supporters of the removing of flock. And I just said, look, this is where it's so important, Tony, for everyone to understand that there is a process with local government or with government in general. And just because they're not there every step of the way doesn't mean we're hiding something. It means that there's a process that I have to follow to be able to educate all of council and myself to make a decision. And that was the reason we went in that closed session.
Okay. One last issue, and I don't think this is an issue for Neenah yet, but as you know, the issue of building data centers is something people are very, very emotional about.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, if something like that were going to be proposed either in Neenah or close to Neenah, would you be opposed to something like that?
And Tony, and I'll be honest with you, I've heard the rhetoric of both sides and I used rhetoric of what is behind that. We have no room in Neenah to put a data center.
Right.
So,
that's right.
So, and I'll be honest with you, and do I hear it? Do I listen? I do. And this is going to sound like a total political answer, Tony. If there is a proposal, let's say in Menasha, they don't have room either, but obviously that has a little bit more of an impact, and then I'm involved. But the one thing that the magnitude of the amount of stuff that is going on in my day, especially in summer without having my summer hours off, the amount of stuff that goes on in my day, it needs my attention for the things that are more pressing right now. I know that may not sound good to people that are opposed to data centers, but this is a business and I've got to focus at things that are happening. And most of my day is probably 60-70% reacting to things that happen. The fun part is when I get to go up to community development and dream about cool things and cool buildings. And, working with Kelly Nyforth, who's the director up there that we borrowed from from Oshkosh as well. So those are the balancing between those things. So if it comes, I'm up for the task to vet through that. But I can assure you that we're struggling for property and land right now. So Neenah would not be a prime place for that.
All right, Brian, in our closing time here, why don't you tell us a little bit about Neenah? What's your elevator pitch for Neenah? And I should tell people that the view behind you is not Neenah, although Neenah
Yes,
is a beautiful city it is near water, but that's not it.
that is not it. No, Andy is going to be working on our back filters for these
Yeah.
things. So I don't know if have the ability to do it, but that's on the horizon. So maybe next time we interview, it'll be a nice picture of someplace in Neenah. Look, Tony, Neenah is so steep with tradition. And so we love playing and using and showing that off. But it's such and I use the term a lot, but it's a hidden gem nestled between some big cities. And we've really had such a community effort to really create this environment where people can work, play, and stay here in Neenah. And our downtown is awesome. Future Neenah, which is our kind of chamber, has done a phenomenal job of really promoting some of the fun things. Our community development has really done a great job to draw businesses into our community. We have amazing philanthropy of, some people that really care about this community. We do, a lot of really fun events that cater to the season and to the qualities that Neenah have. So tons of opportunities, but really small enough to feel connected. So I think as we build, and my hope is we build this, partnership with not only Neenah, but even like Menasha and Oshkosh. How can we promote the Fox Valley as a destination so people can think of Neenah as, like, when you hear Cedarburg or you hear Asheville, it conjures an image of, I want to go there and hang out. And I don't know if that's capable of doing that in 4 years. It's quite the ambition, but I think we can do a really good job if we promote all the amazing things that are happening here.
What is the Friends of Neenah
Yeah,
program that you mentioned before?
So yeah, that is talking about budget, and here we are trying to figure out. I hate the word buy-in. I really like the idea of ownership. And I think really if we can give people an ownership and feel like they're a part of Neenah, the library is a phenomenal example and a model that we're going to try to replicate of volunteers. We have to tell volunteers not to come to the library to volunteer because we have too many. There's opportunities throughout the city. We have a gentleman by the name of Frank Cuthbert that is a gentleman that is doing work at a Carpenter Preserve, where he has rallied people to do signs and cut down buckthorn and really kind of help beautify this park. How can we build on that and get people to feel that ownership? Growing up with my kids on the island here in Neenah, we always went to Doty Park. If I had the opportunity at that time to take my kids and plant flowers like we did a few weeks ago, that builds that strong, ownership in your community. Less likely to do things that maybe you shouldn't in your community, or maybe you throw trash down. I really think it's a grassroots, again, another Tony Palmeri word, another grassroots of trying to give people ownership that they can say, hey, I did that. In the meantime, maybe offsetting some of the hours that our park and rec do, or maybe, we have some things that they can do in these offices. There's a lot of people that really want to feel a part of something, but they want to be asked. If we ask you, don't just say, hey, show up if you want. But if I go out and say, hey, Tony, I know you have a really great skill of filing, so can we get an hour or two of you here because it's tax season and we need these all filed? Well, that's one thing that our staff doesn't have to do, but then you also feel like you've been a part of this team here at the city.
I love what you're saying, Brian, about people having this need to feel connected. And I do feel that this is one of the areas that municipal governments just lack. As you suggest, there are people who want to do things. They want to interact with others, and not just retired people, right? Even young people that are full-time students are, there's the stereotype that all they want to do is stay on their phone for 8 hours a day, but lots of them really do want to connect. So to the extent, and you with your background as an educator, I think will have a lot of success with this, right? How to get young people motivated and involved.
That is the key, and it's young people, because again, you put in that time, and I've told you about this before. I have this concept of the concept of compound interest of service. Of the compound interest of service, it's the more we start to serve others in our lives, the greater and richer our lives become down the road. And it's like that whole idea: if you save $100 and every week or whatever, they become a millionaire when you want to retire. I just think if people started to serve others and looked out for each other, then we become this kind of way of serving each other, and we wouldn't have to stress out as much about the external things that come flying at us because others are trying to help us.
You know, Brian, I'm getting emotional listening to you talk about this because I'd like to think that every moment of my teaching career has been dedicated to helping students become what you just said. And to watch you do it in your life and articulate it so beautifully like you just did, that's just incredible. Yeah.
Small investments early on give big returns in the end. And the more we allow people to feel that early on, the more inclined they would be to not necessarily not think about themselves, but think about others first and their community. And gosh, that's a world I want to live in, right? Where you have people that are just looking out for each other. And if we put, a system in place where we can insert those people and, like you said, maybe get them off their phones and really meet those needs, I think that goes a long way into building that community that everyone wants to live in. And it's definitely a goal. Jane was phenomenal in really getting the ball rolling, and it's on my whiteboard. That is, as a constant reminder, what else can I do to make sure we make this, and so we're hoping the start of the next year, we'll have a massive kickoff, sign up, and really make sure logistically we can do it right to make sure that it continues and gets the legs it needs.
All right, Brian, thanks so much for doing this. We'll have to do it again soon.
I'd like that much. It's a lot of fun, and I appreciate it, Tony. Even the hard questions, you can always ask those.
Absolutely. Thanks much.